The 1970s gave us Godfather and Jaws and Star Wars. Everyone knows those. But what about the brilliant films that premiered to empty theaters, devastated their directors, and only found worship decades later on arrival? These 10 buried treasures prove the 70s had secrets even film buffs haven't uncovered yet. Electra Glide in Blue, 1973. Two-lane Blacktop, 1971. Two street racers in a primer gray 1955 Chevy challenge a man in a brand new Pontiac GTO to race across America. The finish line is in Washington, D.C. The prize is pink slips. Director Monte Hellman turned this simple premise into an existential meditation that confused audiences expecting car chases and instead received philosophical silence. James Taylor and Dennis Wilson, actual musicians with zero acting training, play the driver and the mechanic. Their amateur performances accidentally achieve something professional actors couldn't have delivered. They seem genuinely disconnected, floating through America without purpose or destination. The racing is almost incidental to their aimless existence. Universal Pictures expected a commercial hit capitalizing on the counterculture road movie craze. Hellman delivered something far stranger, a film where characters barely speak, motivations remain unclear, and the race itself seems increasingly meaningless. Studio executives were furious. Warren Oates steals every scene as GTO, a compulsive liar who tells different backstories to every hitchhiker he picks up. His performance is simultaneously hilarious and heartbreaking, a man constructing identities because he can't face his own emptiness. Esquire magazine proclaimed it the movie of the year before release. Then audiences rejected it completely. The film died faster than the muscle cars it featured. Decades later, critics recognized its genius. The Criterion Collection restored it. Directors from Richard Linklater to the Coen brothers acknowledged its influence on their approach to American landscape cinema. The final shot, where the film literally burns through the projector gate, remains one of cinema's most audacious endings. Hellman wasn't just ending his movie, he was destroying the medium itself. Nobody else had the courage to try that. The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973. Robert Mitchum plays a small-time gun runner facing prison time who must choose between informing on his criminal associates or serving hard time at an age when survival isn't guaranteed. Director Peter Yates crafted the grimmest, most realistic crime film the decade produced. Mitchum was 55, tired, and weathered in ways that served Eddie Coyle perfectly. This wasn't the magnetic leading man of earlier decades. This was a broken man navigating systems designed to crush anyone without power. His hangdog expression carries decades of accumulated disappointment. The film treats crime like blue-collar work. Transactions happen in diners and parking lots. Nobody gives speeches about loyalty or honor. These are working stiffs trying to survive. And the mundane reality makes everything more disturbing than stylized violence ever could. Boston locations give the film documentary authenticity. No Hollywood backlots, no glamorized cityscapes, just gray northeastern reality where everyone seems perpetually cold and perpetually desperate. Critics praised it. Audiences ignored it completely. The studio barely marketed a film they didn't understand. How do you sell a crime movie without car chases or shootouts to 1973 audiences expecting entertainment? Quentin Tarantino calls it essential viewing for understanding how crime cinema evolved. The Departed borrowed its Boston atmosphere decades later. Every realistic crime drama since owes debts to this forgotten masterpiece. Mitchum considered it his finest performance, which should mean something from an actor who made over 100 films. Hollywood disagreed, offering him nothing comparable afterward. The system Eddie Coyle couldn't escape apparently extended beyond the screen into the industry itself. Straight Time, 1978. Dustin Hoffman plays a career criminal released from prison who genuinely tries going straight before the system's cruelty, and his own impulses pull him back into robbery. This isn't a redemption story. This is something far more honest and far more devastating. Hoffman originally planned to direct, but relinquished control during production. The resulting film feels disjointed in ways that somehow enhance its authenticity. Nothing goes smoothly for Max Dembo. Nothing should go smoothly in a film about his life. The parole officer scenes featuring Emmett Walsh are infuriating by design. Walsh plays a petty tyrant who enjoys tormenting parolees because he can. You understand exactly why Max eventually snaps. The system isn't designed for rehabilitation. It's designed for failure, Harry Dean Stanton and Gary Busey deliver supporting performances that remind viewers what character actors could accomplish when given material worthy of their talents. These aren't flashy roles. They're lived in, desperate, and completely authentic. Warner Brothers buried it. The studio wanted Hoffman in commercial hits, not grim crime dramas that made audiences uncomfortable. Marketing was minimal. Theatrical runs were brief. James Ellroy, the crime novelist, considers it the most realistic crime film ever made. Michael Mann studied it before making Thief. The DNA of Straight Time runs through every serious crime drama that followed. Hoffman has made many prestigious films since. He's rarely been this raw, this unglamorous, this committed to uncomfortable truth. Max Dembo isn't sympathetic in traditional ways. He's understandable in ways that implicate the audience for recognizing themselves in his frustrations. Charley Varrick, 1973. Walter Matthau robs a small-town bank only to discover the vault contained mafia money, and now professional killers are hunting him across the American Southwest. Director Don Siegel, the master of stripped-down action cinema, delivered his leanest, meanest thriller. Matthau was primarily known for comedies. Casting him as a cold, calculating criminal seemed bizarre. It works brilliantly. His everyman appearance makes Charlie's intelligence more surprising. You underestimate him. Everyone underestimates him. That's exactly how he survives. Joe Don Baker plays the mob enforcer Molly, one of cinema's most genuinely terrifying villains. Baker gives Molly a folksy politeness that makes his violence more disturbing. He's not a screaming psychopath. He's a professional doing ugly work with craftsman precision. The film strips away everything unnecessary. No romantic subplots, no bloated runtime, no scenes existing solely to pad the budget. Siegel understood that tension comes from economy, not excess. Universal released it with minimal promotion, unsure how to market a Matthau thriller. Critics appreciated it, audiences largely missed it. The 70s produced so many crime films that genuine gems disappeared in the flood. Quentin Tarantino programs it at his film festivals. Steven Soderbergh specifically studied it before making his heist films. The precise, methodical approach to criminal procedure influenced everything from Heat to the Ocean's franchise. Siegel had directed Dirty Harry just 2 years earlier. That film became iconic. Charley Varrick, arguably superior, became a footnote. Cinema history is unfair like that. Commercial timing matters more than quality. Charley Varrick deserves audiences it never received. Night Moves, 1975. Gene Hackman plays a private detective hired to find a runaway teenager in the Florida Keys, only to uncover something far darker than a missing girl. Director Arthur Penn crafted the definitive neo-noir for an era when Americans no longer trusted any institution. This was post-Watergate America. The detective genre traditionally offered resolution. Answers emerged. Justice prevailed. Penn demolished that comforting formula. Harry Mosby finds answers that explain nothing and justice that satisfies no one. Hackman delivers a performance of mounting desperation. Mosby thinks he's intelligent. He's constantly wrong. He thinks he understands situations. He's being manipulated. Hackman makes his growing realization painful to witness. We're watching a man discover his own irrelevance. The Florida locations feel simultaneously beautiful and sinister. Sunlight that should feel warming instead feels exposing. The ocean that should feel peaceful instead feels like it's hiding bodies. Penn transforms paradise into purgatory. Critics were divided. Audiences expecting conventional mysteries stayed away. The film was too strange for mainstream success, too commercial for art house embrace. It fell between categories and disappeared. Decades later, critics recognized it as one of the decade's essential works. The ambiguous ending, criticized initially, now reads as prophetic. Sometimes investigations don't solve anything. Sometimes the truth makes everything worse. Paul Schrader, who would write Taxi Driver, called it the blueprint for morally complex detective fiction. David Fincher studied its construction of uncertainty. Every mystery film that refuses easy resolution follows the path Night Moves cleared through cinema's comfortable assumptions about narrative satisfaction. The Long Goodbye, 1973. Philip Marlowe wakes up at 3 a.m. to help a friend, and that simple act of loyalty drags him into a labyrinth involving murder, betrayal, and everything corrupt about 1970s Los Angeles. Robert Altman took Raymond Chandler's legendary detective and dropped him into a world where his code meant absolutely nothing. Elliot Gould plays Marlowe as a man out of time, still wearing a suit and tie, while everyone around him has gone casual. He's courteous in a rude world. He's loyal in a treacherous world. Gould mumbles his way through scenes, seemingly confused by everything surrounding him. It's a radical interpretation that initially infuriated Chandler purists. The studio hated it. United Artists released it twice with different marketing campaigns, desperate to find an audience. First release flopped, second release flopped. Altman's deconstruction of noir mythology arrived before audiences were ready for deconstruction. Cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond shot through glass and windows, creating perpetual visual barriers between Marlowe and the world he's investigating. The technique emphasizes disconnection. Marlowe can see corruption everywhere, but can never quite grasp it clearly. Sterling Hayden delivers a remarkable supporting performance as a Hemingway-esque writer dissolving in alcohol and self-destruction. His scenes feel uncomfortably real because Hayden was battling similar demons during filming. Modern critics consider it Altman's masterpiece, which says something given his extraordinary filmography. The Coen brothers specifically cited it when making The Big Lebowski. Every ironic detective story since owes debts to Altman's audacious gamble. The ending shocked audiences expecting Chandler's moral certainties. Altman wasn't interested in morality. He was interested in survival, and survival in the 1970s required abandoning the codes that made Marlowe heroic in earlier incarnations. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. A broke piano player in Mexico accepts a bounty on a dead man's head and descends into absolute madness, pursuing the grisly prize. Director Sam Peckinpah poured every frustration, every demon, every ounce of self-destruction into this fever dream that critics despised and audiences avoided. Warren Oates plays Benny, and his performance is one of cinema's most unhinged. Driving through Mexican desert with a decomposing head wrapped in burlap, talking to it, arguing with it, treating it as his only friend. Oates commits completely to material that lesser actors would have played for camp. Peckinpah was falling apart during production. His substance issues were legendary. His paranoia was escalating, yet somehow the personal chaos translated into artistic vision. The film feels genuinely dangerous because its creator was genuinely dangerous. Every major studio passed on it. United Artists took a chance and immediately regretted it. Critics were vicious. Roger Ebert called it excessive. Pauline Kael dismissed it entirely. The film died on arrival and stayed dead for decades. Then, something shifted. Directors started citing it as their favorite Peckinpah film. Martin Scorsese defended it publicly. Quentin Tarantino programmed it at festivals. The cult grew. The violence is extreme, even by Peckinpah's standards, but it's never glamorized. This is ugly death, senseless death, death that degrades everyone involved. Peckinpah wasn't celebrating carnage. He was condemning it while being unable to look away. Peckinpah called it the only film he made that studios didn't interfere with. The purest expression of his vision is also his most rejected work. That tells you everything about the distance between artistic truth and commercial viability in 1970s Hollywood. The Conversation, 1974. Gene Hackman plays a surveillance expert who may have recorded evidence of an upcoming murder and must decide whether professional detachment matters more than human life. Francis Ford Coppola made this intimate paranoia thriller between the two Godfather films, and it might be his finest achievement. Hackman's Harry Caul is cinema's loneliest professional. He's brilliant at listening to others, but incapable of connecting with anyone himself. His apartment is barren. His relationships are transactional. His only genuine expression comes through playing saxophone alone in his empty room. Coppola built the entire film around a single conversation recorded in a crowded plaza. We hear the same snippet repeatedly, each time catching different words, different emphases, different possible meanings. The technique mirrors how paranoia distorts perception through obsessive repetition. The film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, beating Coppola's own Godfather Part 2 for the festival's top prize. Yet American audiences largely ignored it. The Godfather saga was spectacle. The Conversation was claustrophobic. Spectacle sold tickets. Walter Murch's sound design remains revolutionary. Every creak, every echo, every ambient hum carries meaning or potential threat. Modern sound designers study his work religiously. The audio craft alone justifies the film's existence. The ending ranks among cinema's most devastating. Harry Coyle, the man who listened to everyone, discovers the limits of knowledge and control. He destroys everything searching for bugs that may or may not exist. The final image of him playing saxophone in his demolished apartment is pure tragedy. Post-Watergate audiences should have embraced a film about surveillance paranoia. Instead, they preferred escapism. History has corrected the oversight. The conversation now regularly appears on lists of the decade's finest achievements. Sorcerer, 1977. Four desperate men from different countries drive trucks loaded with unstable explosives through South American jungle to extinguish an oil well fire. Director William Friedkin remade the French classic The Wages of Fear and created something so brutally intense that audiences couldn't handle it. The production was legendary for its disasters, filming in multiple countries, budgets spiraling past $20 million. Friedkin's perfectionism driving cast and crew to exhaustion. The jungle sequences required building an actual bridge over an actual river, then destroying it, then rebuilding it for additional takes. Roy Scheider, fresh from Jaws' success, plays one of four men with nothing to lose. His American gangster fleeing prosecution shares truck space with a Palestinian militant, a French banker, and a Mexican hitman. They're all running from their pasts into probable death. The bridge sequence remains one of cinema's most harrowing set pieces. Trucks crossing a rope bridge during a storm, swaying over churning water, threatening to flip at any moment. Friedkin shot it practically with real vehicles on a real deteriorating bridge. Modern CGI couldn't replicate the tension because audiences sense when danger is genuine. Then Star Wars opened the same weekend. Audiences chose lightsabers over existential dread. Sorcerer was annihilated at the box office. Universal barely recouped a fraction of costs. Critics who liked it were drowned out by commercial failure. Friedkin's career never fully recovered. He directed The French Connection and The Exorcist, two of the decade's biggest hits. Sorcerer's failure marked the end of his dominance. Decades later, restoration and reappraisal revealed what contemporary audiences missed. This wasn't failed ambition. This was ambition achieved. Every practical stunt that terrifies viewers happened in front of cameras without digital enhancement. That authenticity matters. Sorcerer is a monument to what cinema could accomplish before computers made everything possible and nothing impressive.